Nigeria will be impartially governed according to the rule of law. We shall defend the nation from terror. We shall remodel our economy. The fuel subsidy is gone. The central bank must work towards a unified exchange rate.
It's been 2 years now since President Bola Ahmed Tinubu made those solemn, far-reaching pledges when he was sworn in as the 16th president of Nigeria on May 29, 2023. Halfway through his 4-year term of office, President Tinubu is taking some of the boldest and toughest decisions that are now placing Nigeria on the sure path of genuine growth and progress.
I speak as a member of the Presidential Economic Coordinating Council, and I speak as someone who, from time to time, is opportune to have some conversations with Mr. President. His ruthless commitment and desire to see a transformed Nigeria is unrivaled.
I've known Mr. President now for almost 32, 33 years. He's somebody who likes to take bold step and bold move, and he's a visionary leader. These structural reforms which Mr. President did, really, you must give him credit. Even his own enemy will give him a credit, because removing total subsidy, making it an open market, for Nigerians to be buying at the market rates, and also doing the exchange rate on top of that. On top of that exchange rate, also doing the removal of subsidy to some of us in the high class in terms of electricity consumption, because 241% increase wasn't really a small thing. But all this have actually been absorbed by people without burning tires, without this, so it was actually accepted. And this has actually reduced the drain on government's resources. But on this one, really, I think Mr. President has actually done extremely very, very, very well. Because these were things that I thought they won't happen in our lifetime, but here we are.
Nigeria's economy was severely challenged when President Tinubu assumed office in May 2023. Revenue had fallen, with debt servicing taking about 90% of government receipts. Oil production had also fallen to a worrying level. The government had a mounting of foreign exchange obligations to deal with. There were fuel subsidy obligations running into trillions of naira.
Nigeria's economy was on a cliff and in an intensive unit. And we weren't sure how soon it will fall. But when he came in, within a year, Nigeria moved out of the intensive units, moved away from that cliff, and is now in a recovery position.
The economy was practically on the brink. Our external reserve position, particularly the net external reserves, was so bad that it was so difficult for us to fund our foreign transactions. It was so bad that the letters of credit issued by Nigerian banks in most cases were not honored by our correspondent banks abroad. So that created a major crisis in our external position. Then we had a major crisis with our petroleum downstream sector. We were spending anywhere between 10 billion to 15 billion US dollars importing petroleum products. So that created a major fiscal crisis. And as a result of that, we had a regime of massive printing of currency. At the inception of this administration, I think there was a currency printing liability was about 23 trillion naira that was inherited by this administration. And that had very serious implications for our macroeconomic environment, for inflation, for deficit. And to make matters worse, the printing of money was done in a manner that was completely not transparent. So it was a very, very bad situation that required urgent resetting of the economy.
2 years on, and with bold and sometimes difficult economic policies, the economy is beginning to turn the corner. Government revenues have dramatically increased, just as revenue to debt service has also come down to around 68%. States and local governments now get more allocations than ever.
Thus, I've been able to push out economic growth that was the highest rate that Nigeria has seen in 10 years with what we did in 2024. And alongside that growth, we have seen other great indications. Reserves of close to $40 billion. Unencumbered reserve has grown by about $20 billion, which is from 3.99 to 23 billion dollars. Nigeria was able to pay its IMF debt, the one that was procured during COVID, $3.4 billion fully paid, leaving some items of interest rates and special drawing rights to be addressed. Even we have also paid down Eurobonds and the of about $2 billion of Eurobonds that we paid in 2024. And the states in 2024 alone in 2024, the states paid down 32% of their total global loans.
Now I can tell you that as a member of the National Economic Council, for the past 9 months, NNPC has not brought any money to Federation account. We largely depend now on Federal Inland Revenue and Nigerian Customs and non-oil revenue as our major source of funds for Federation allocation and fiscal mobilization.
The courage that has been displayed by Mr. President is quite unusual in this part. The hard decisions that we've spoken about for God knows when, he's been able to confront those twin problems. First, with regards to fuel subsidy, gulping about $10 billion every year. So he came in day one, faced that head on, and then the issue of devaluation of the currency and floating it, ensuring that there's transparency and confidence built in the last few months.
Stability is fast returning to the foreign exchange market, and the country has just recorded a balance of payment surplus of $6.83 billion for the financial year 2024.
I would say that we are entering what you can call a stabilization phase of the economy. The kind of volatility that we experienced in the second half of 2023 up onto the second half of 2024, those volatilities are beginning to fizzle out. From the second half of 2024 up until now, we have witnessed a kind of normalization, especially in the macroeconomic environments.
Our Fitch ratings are up. The reforms in NNPC, the signing of the new Investment and Securities Act, several important pivotal reforms that globally and domestically, everyone can attest to the inflection point that is the Nigerian economy this year. Portfolio investment is up. FDI is also up. You know, we've been tracking his investment announcements from his presidential trips, over 30 of them, as at December 2024 was $50.8 billion. Our job is to make sure that those announcements translate into bankable investments that we see through. And so those discussions and dialogues have continued to be ongoing.
The revenue of government has gone up 60% in 2024 compared to the previous year. And that's the federal level. At the state level, the revenues to the states have doubled. So these are signs of the improvements in the government revenues as a result of the bold and courageous changes that were made that you have mentioned.
The measures we have taken so far in terms of orthodox monetary policies, we can see have begun to yield fruit. They have begun to yield fruit. We can see that accretion to reserves have been consistent. And at one point in time, may I remind everybody that we achieved the highest level of reserves in the past 3 years at one point in time. We've also continued to see inflation gradually beginning to decelerate. We can see that there's greater confidence in our markets.
What has happened under the solid mineral sector in the past 2 years is unprecedented as a result of the deep-rooted reforms of the Tinubu administration. Virtually all the metrics in the sector have changed. Investments are pouring in. At the last count, the government has attracted over $800 million in new investments to the sector. Among the new investments is a $600 million lithium plant in Kaduna State and another $200 million refinery near Abuja and 2 additional processing plants in Nasarawa State.
We have a policy of local value addition, which is also part of our 7-point agenda. And the idea is that for so long as we could remember, even before we were born, our minerals have been adjudged raw materials and they've been extracted and exported to service the industries of developed societies. And so under the President Tinubu's Renewed Hope agenda, we say no more. Now, we do not approve licenses from applicants who do not show us concrete plans of local value addition, which means you must process locally.
Revenue to the sector has also quadrupled in just the last 1 year. In 2024, the sector generated over 35 billion naira, up from 6 billion in 2023. And this is despite receiving only 18% of its 29 billion naira budget.
We created the mining marshals, which has become very popular and very, very effective in Nigeria. Now, in the last 1 year, because the mining marshal celebrated 1 year of its establishment a few weeks ago, and I reeled out this very positive and remarkable statistics. They've arrested over 300 illegal miners in 1 year of its operation. Over almost 150 are undergoing prosecution across the states in the country. And we've secured over 9 convictions, including foreigners involved in this nefarious activity. And this has really helped us to send a strong message and signal to the operators in this sector that it's no longer business as usual.
Some of the tough but necessary economic reforms of the government have not come without some difficulties for Nigerians. But the government has responded positively to ameliorate the situation. It's increased the minimum wage to 70,000 naira. It's also established the Consumer Credit Corporation with a provision of over 200 billion naira to make consumer credit more accessible.
Hitherto, Nigerians, especially the working class, find it extremely difficult to get money to buy cars, to build houses, to buy even household appliances. The President Bola Ahmed Tinubu thought there shouldn't be any reason why an average worker in Nigeria should worry himself because he wants to get some essentials of life. And so Credit Corp was established, and it's gladdening to note that it has done so well. So many Nigerians have been able to access that.
Another strategy to ease some of the fallouts of the economic reforms is a presidential CNG initiative launched by President Tinubu in October 2023 to facilitate the adoption of natural gas, a cheaper alternative fuel following the removal of petrol subsidy. Since its official rollout in May 2024, thousands of Nigerians and even government agencies have embraced the program, making the switch to CNG.
We've attracted $491 million of investment to auto CNG, which has created 9,000 direct jobs and 75,000 indirect ones. To this end, the Nigerian conversion capacity of vehicles from pure petrol and diesel to turn them to biofuel vehicles was also raised by almost 3,000%, with more than 200 new conversion centers established in this past year.
In addition to the CNG program, The government has rolled out and supported several other initiatives to cushion the impact of its reforms. There is the Presidential Conditional Grant Scheme, which provides cash grants to micro and small businesses. So far, over 700,000 nano businesses have received 50,000 naira each, while micro and small businesses have received ₦1 million each from the scheme.
The citizens have made a lot of sacrifice in the reform process. So there should be a way to ensure that the benefits of the reform trickle down better to the ordinary citizens. In other words, we need to democratize the benefits of the reform, because the citizens are still worried about the cost of living, especially the cost of basic things like food, the cost of transportation, the cost of health care, the cost of education. Those things are still big issues. So going forward, we want to see more impact, more efforts, deliberate efforts to ensure that the cost of living is reduced, so that we can make the whole reform process a lot more inclusive.
Determined to ensure every Nigerian who desires tertiary education is not in any way hindered by funds, the government launched one of the most consequential education initiatives in the history of the country. The Nigeria Education Loan Fund, NELFund for short, provides interest-free loans to students in tertiary institutions who desire the loan to enable them pay their fees and for upkeep. Beneficiaries of the interest-free loan are only expected to start paying back 2 years after the secured jobs upon graduation. The government has made available over 200 billion naira for the takeoff of the initiative.
This scheme was designed and introduced by the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, whose vision it is to ensure that everybody has access to education at tertiary level, and those who are coming up to tertiary level have the hope that they can rise to the highest heights without having to worry about funds. So we've disbursed in institutional fees somewhere in the region of 30 billion naira. For the upkeep, we've disbursed 24 billion naira. So we have disbursed a total of 54 billion naira, and by our numbers, 293,000. So just short of 300,000 students have directly benefited, have directly received or should have received value from our disbursement.
The initiative is helping many young Nigerians achieve their dream of getting tertiary education, as funding is now no longer a barrier.
Today, no child can be denied access to higher education because he comes from a poor family. He wasn't born to wealth and privilege. Some countries in Africa have visited Nigeria to learn the mechanics of this program. It's a landmark program.
The passage of the Petroleum Industry Bill in 2021 set the stage for a revolution in Nigeria's oil and gas industry. That revolution is now beginning to happen under the watch of President Bola Tinubu.
Before this government came, and it's very fundamental, there were a lot of, companies that were divested. And as they were divesting, divestments were frustrated. But when this government came, we went around the world campaigning that come and invest in Nigeria. And the question was asked, the companies in Nigeria couldn't divest, so how can I bring my money to invest? If tomorrow I want to divest, how do I divest? And we told them that, look, this is a new government with a new direction. And so we have been able to successfully, allow the divestments. So the president, graciously approved of the divestments. And today, Nigeria's story has changed. And Nigeria is a country that you can bring your capex to invest and also divest as well.
For someone who had this experience, to see today an administration that allowed the Seplat Exxon transaction to go through successfully, I commend it. It's not me, Tony Miller or Holdings Group buying it. It's others, but I commend it. Those are the signaling effect people want to see, investors want to see, that brings them to invest in the country. And by the way, not just investors come to invest, financiers, because we need capital. Those who will release that capital, want to make sure that where the capital is going to is conducive. So when you approve Seplat Exxon Transit that has been on the table since life started, it is telling a signal. You don't need any CNN advertisement.
Investors are now showing renewed interest in Nigeria's oil and gas sector. In December 2023, French energy giant Total Energies committed to invest $6 billion in the country's oil and gas industry. Other IOCs like Shell and ExxonMobil have also demonstrated similar commitments in the region of $13 billion.
There are investments that have run into tens of billions of dollars. There is also another investment that is coming that is about $20 billion, but it's good for it to come. It is announced, where it is right, but we are very close. I believe that within a very short period, that announcement will be made.
The country's refineries are now coming back on stream. Together with the privately owned Dangote refinery and other modular refineries, they've helped to cut Nigeria's petrol import by around 50%. It's now only a matter of time before the country completely ends petrol import and safeguards foreign exchange.
Within no short period of time, we will have 1.2 million barrels of refining capacity. What that does is, of course, it makes us self-sufficient in petroleum products. It gives us the ability to export petroleum products efficiently, formally, legally, and profitably. But more important than that, along with that refining capacity comes the production of industrial raw materials from the adjoining and complementary petrochemical complexes.
Oil theft and other constraints still remain threats to the country's crude oil production target of at least 2.1 million barrels per day in 2025. But the government is not giving up on its projection.
Oil theft, was a major challenge as we came, but, with the collaboration of security agencies together with civilian contractors, we've been able to, reduce the oil theft. And that is why you see the increments that we made, over the last 2 years. But we will continue to improve on what we have been able to achieve.
On security, I speak as a significant investor in the oil and gas sector in Nigeria. Our group, as Energies, we are the third biggest producer of oil in Nigeria today. We produce over 50,000 barrels of oil on a daily basis. In December 2021, I tweeted and I cried out because we will produce and what we'll get at the end, when we put in the pipeline, we'll get 3% of total production. And so we cried out and we shut down. We said it's totally unsustainable. We are working for thieves on the country. And that is the manifestation of insecurity. Now, fast forward to December 2024. Our recovery is 100%. What you put in the pipeline, you get at the other end. That's totally impressive.
At inception, the Bola Tinubu administration had inherited a total of 2,604 projects in the Ministry of Works from the previous administration, totaling 13 trillion naira. The figure would rise to 19 trillion naira following the removal of petrol subsidy and floating of the naira.
So the president, in fact, and of course the Federal Executive Council, directed that we should do prioritization. So out of these 2,604, we selected about 404 projects, major projects, review them, and they are all ongoing. And then the new projects of Mr. President under this administration is about 65. And of course, this 65, excludes the 4 legacy projects of Mr. President.
The 4 legacy projects are ambitious, gigantic, and transformative road projects. They're unprecedented in the history of the country and link the entire nation. And this is one of them. The 750-kilometer Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway, which will run from Victoria Island in Lagos, southwest Nigeria, to Calabar in Cross River State in the south of the country. Work has since begun on the project, and its first phase, which is approximately 30 kilometers, will be commissioned in May.
Incidentally, it has two spurs. The first spur is, it was supposed to be Sokoto, Badagry, Sokoto, as, envisaged by the Shagari administration, about 45 years back. But the president, changed it to Sokoto, Badagry, 1,068 kilometers. Intention is that the Sokoto, Badagry should start from Sokoto and Kebbi. And as we talk today, we have 258 kilometers by one carriageway going on at, Kebbi section. And we have 120 kilometers, going on in, Sokoto section. We are about to procure the second carriageway of 258 in Kebbi and the 120 in Sokoto. But this is a spur, of the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway. So, but the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway, 750 kilometers of route, of course, it runs through, Lagos, to Ogun, to Ondo, to Edo Delta, Bayelsa, Port Harcourt, Akwa Ibom, and the ending at Cross River. And when it ends at Cross River, the axis of Cross River now starts from there to the the third legacy project of Mr. President, which is the Trans-Sahara, route, which is 462 kilometers. And it connects from the, Calabar end, going through Calabar to Ebonyi, to Enugu, to Benue, to Kogi, to Nasarawa, and ends in Abuja. And then it connects the fourth legacy project of Mr. President, which is 482 kilometers, which, starts from, Akwanga. If you look at the just concluded project of, Kefi to Makurdi, which is being told now, then from that Akwanga section, it gets to Jos. And from Jos, it gets to Bauchi, it gets to Gombe. So the entire four legacy project of Mr. President, if you look at the loop, it's all connecting the six geopolitical zone.
While work is ongoing with the legacy projects, inherited major projects are also receiving equal attention. Among them is a 700-kilometer Abuja-Kaduna-Kano highway.
I think Nigeria never had it, this good. And I want to say, with all sense of responsibility, that before now, past government has been building roads. But today, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is constructing roads. Because we are constructing roads that will last from 50 to 100 years. And the problem we've had in our road construction has been, poor design, poor construction, poor method of construction, and then lack of commitment on the side of all partners, getting things done. But it is no longer business as usual.
Across the 6 geopolitical zones, road projects are currently going on, overseen by a minister who is not only a core professional, but also passionate about executing the president's ambitious works projects.
There is no money anyway. The ones that we have, the president is judiciously using it very well. And I'm happy with his engagement in this legacy project because foreign money is coming in at as low as 2.5%, So this legacy project has 30%, Naira funding, and then 70%, loan component. When a nation borrows to do infrastructure, that is the right borrowing. And I tell you something, these legacy projects are not just road projects, they're investment. By December, we would have finished Section 1 of the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway. Apart from the inherent benefits, we're also going to recover our money, return on investment under 10 years. We're going to be tolling it, So when we borrow to invest, when we recover the money we borrowed, we'll be able to pay back, and we also, it becomes also part of the, the wealth of the nation.
The issue of transportation, especially with the removal of subsidy, we must look at a cheaper way of transportation, and the railway system is the very cheap system of transportation. And he continued with what the previous government started, the railway system from Lagos to Ibadan, from Ibadan to Kaduna, from Kaduna to Kano, Kano to Daura, Daura to Katsina, Katsina to Maradi, Maradi to Jibia in Niger Republic. That project has continued. Work is going on now, and the AKK, Ajakuta, Kaduna, Kano gas pipeline, which is absolutely necessary for the industrial development, especially in those industrial cities like Kaduna, Kano. You see, that work is going on.
To address the housing challenge confronting the country, President Bola Tinubu, on assuming office, launched the renewed Hope City and Estate Housing Initiative with a plan to build 100,000 housing units over a period of 3 years. That plan is now fully on course. Thousands of homes are currently being built across different states. The first set of houses will soon be handed over to successful applicants. Nigeria's perennial electricity challenge has for long defied every solution thrown at it. But after initiating some drastic reforms like the signing of the Electricity Act Amendment Bill 2024 and making huge investments, the government is gradually turning things around.
On 2nd of March 2025, Nigeria reached a remarkable generation available capacity of 6,003 megawatts, marking the first time this level had been recorded in the country's history. That is not enough. This achievement was followed by a peak generation evacuation of 5,801.44 megawatts on 4th of March 2025, which also saw an impressive daily energy output, the highest ever, 128,370.75 mega hours per day on that very day. We've always been in 118, 119,000 megawatts on a daily basis, but we achieved 128. That is the highest energy ever consumed in a day since power sector came to being in Nigeria, and we are proud to achieve this.
It took the country about 40 years to attain 4,000 megawatts of power, but with its reforms, this government has been able to add 1,700 megawatts to attain a peak generation of 5,800 megawatts in less than 2 years.
Now that we have created the trajectory, if we sustain this trajectory, I can assure you that before the end of this administration in 2027, the first 10 of this administration, 2027, we should be able to generate and distribute nothing less than 8,000 megawatts of power.
Investments are now coming into the electricity sector as a result of the reforms by the government. Many states now regulate their own electricity market. The government is also investing heavily on renewable energy to power communities across the country that are not connected to the national grid through the Rural Electrification Agency. While the electricity sector still faces a number of challenges, the reform in the sector is no doubt changing the narrative one step at a time. In the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, an infrastructure revolution is going on. The Minister of the FCT, Nyesom Wike, and his team are bringing the president's ambitious aspirations for the capital to reality, one project at a time. In just 2 years, the number of projects executed and completed is mind-blowing. And they run across the entire FCT, covering both the city centers and satellite areas where many of the residents and indigenous people live.
The leadership Mr. President has shown is what has encouraged us to take bold decisions. We can't continue to be business as usual. We must do things in different ways. But before that, it was difficult because that leadership was not provided. And you don't want to go and take a decision where you're embarrassed by appointment. Nobody does that. So now we have seen that we have a leadership that's focused and said, it was result. It does not want excuses. It does not want, oh, you see, people did it. No. He has confidence in you. He believes you have what it takes to support him, to achieve what he has promised Nigerians. So what is all this excuses that this happened, that didn't happen? So all we are is to continue for what we stopped last year. Last year, it took us about 12 days, 13 days of commission of projects. This year alone, it's taking us 19 good days of projects that will touch on the life of the people, those who reside in the city and those who reside in the satellite center. It has never happened.
The projects are fast changing the face of Abuja. New bus terminals have sprung up in the city. New roads and bridges have been built, and more are still under construction. Satellite towns are now being opened up as genuine development is reaching underserved communities in the FCT. One of the key sectors President Tinubu prioritized on coming into office is the health sector. It's partly what informed his decision to poach Professor Mohammed Pate from the Global Vaccine Alliance Gavi and appointed him Nigeria's coordinating Minister of Health and Social Welfare. Almost 2 years on, and with the introduction of several reforms by the administration, Nigeria's once broken health system is now being fixed.
The investment that we have had in 2024 and here now in 2025 being planned for infrastructural upgrades. This country has never seen something like that. Let me give you an example. Cancer, which is a major issue that is emerging in our society. President approved for 6 major cancer infrastructural upgrades and equipment upgrades in 2024 in February. World-class radiodiagnostic centers in collaboration with NSIA, for instance. There are 10 major radiodiagnostic centers that are being constructed right now. The subsidy that the federal government provided for dialysis, for instance, for kidney patients. Federal government bought 10,000 dialysis commodities through centers all across the geopolitical zones of Nigeria to make it cheaper for patients that are dialysis dependent, and accelerated renal transplant centers. Sokoto had its first renal kidney transplant. Now Ife is coming along. There are others that are looking at that. We're now beginning to think of liver transplant, open heart surgery. There are many of those infrastructural upgrades. So the kinds of things that you are hearing from abroad, or you have to go to Egypt or somewhere else to get them, are beginning to be feasible here. My goodness, orthopedics, a major cause of people traveling abroad. My own father had a domestic accident, had a major fracture in his mid-80s, but he was fixed within a week in a public hospital in this country, and within 4 weeks he was already standing.
Anchored in the Nigeria Health Sector Renewal Investment Initiative, the reform in the health sector is fast transforming the country's health infrastructure, attracting over $3 billion in grants and investments. The government is investing massively to turn around the country's primary healthcare system. Existing primary healthcare centers are being upgraded. Over 8,000 new ones are now being built across the country.
So we set out to expand the primary healthcare system, to make it functional at level 2, to improve the level of functionality. So we embarked on increasing the functionality of 8,800 primary healthcare centers, and over time expanding them to 17,000 that are functional, so that Nigerians will have the retail points working between federal government, states, local governments, private sector, development partners to roll that going forward, to revitalize the basic healthcare provision fund. And in the last 2 years, we have had 6 out of the 11 ministerial oversight convenings of the basic healthcare provision fund that disburse resources to all the 36 states, to those thousands of primary healthcare centers that are called BHCPF facilities all across Nigeria, that receive on a quarterly basis disbursements for their fuel, for their running costs, for stipend for their health workers, for buying drugs and commodities for the patient that they see on the supply side. And with that, we're seeing of today 20 million contacts every quarter.
Beyond health infrastructure, the Tinubu administration is making healthcare easily accessible for all Nigerians. Today, pregnant women who require cesarean section can access the service for free at federal health facilities. Kidney patients can now get up to 80% subsidy on dialysis services at 11 federal hospitals across the country. And to address the manpower shortage in the health sector, the government has so far recruited over 2,000 doctors and nurses, as well as engaged 774 national health fellows across local government areas in the country. Over 600,000 health workers have also been retrained for better health services.
All in all, I think if you take the 2 years of this president's tenure, is the midterm. I would say that we've turned around what was a very complex, underfunded, hyper-fragmented sector that underperformed relative to its peers to one that is being recognized in the continent and beyond the continent as one that is on a trajectory of much better performance and also is being touted as a leader.
Even though the president signed an executive order waiving import duty on health equipment, the government is also ramping up efforts on local pharmaceutical production.
By 2027, it's expected that 60% of health products, including personal care products, will be manufactured in Nigeria.
For over a decade, Nigeria has battled myriad of insecurity challenges, pushing the country to the brink. Learning from the challenges and successes of the previous administrations before it, and barring recent setbacks, the Tinubu administration is changing the narrative.
I think the most obvious thing is the commitment by the government. From the beginning, the president made very clear his commitment to address the security challenge, and this is manifested in different ways. First, in his renewed hope agenda, where he made security the second key priority, as it were. Then he also listed 8 elements that he put forward to address the national security challenge. Also, in terms of budgeting, we've seen a very steady increase, and in fact, an obvious increase in budgetary provision for the security sector. From what he inherited at about 1-point-something trillion to 3.6 trillion thereabout, which is the last budget, the 2025 budget. We've also seen his engagement with the security sector leadership. You recall that one of the first things he did after his swearing in on May 29, 2023, was to visit the Office of the National Security Advisor, and he also had meetings with some of the security sector leadership. So that commitment, I think, it's unquestioned.
In just 2 years, the security reforms of the administration are bearing positive results. Terrorist attacks are declining. At some point, they've reached their lowest in over a decade. Terrorism-related deaths are also coming down. Attacks in the southeast have now been reduced by almost 75%.
The last 2 years is watershed, indeed, in the fight against banditry. 11,250 hostages on record free. A decline, we started witnessing the decline in abduction. Decisive blows to top warlords. The Kachallas, Ali Kachalla, Boderi, Halilu Sububu, Dangote, Isu, Yellow, Damuna, Buhari, all of them have met their creator. Over 50 of such leaders were eliminated. Over 70 of their deputies, commanders, and hundreds of foot soldiers neutralized. In the Northeast, Mr. President, where it all started over 20 years ago, the Boko Haram, the jihadis, over 13,543 terrorists and criminals neutralized since we came in. Over 124,408 Boko Haram ISWAP fighters and family members surrendered. Over 11,118 weapons recovered and destroyed. 52,596 rounds of assorted ammunition recovered and destroyed just in Borno State. Southeast, a welcome development is that the sit-at-home orders is becoming more and more ineffective. Key IPOP ESN figures capture and neutralize many in the battlefield. Over 50 police stations and many police forces are back in business. Attacks on security forces significantly reduced. Social and economic activities are normalizing. This can be testified by anyone who will visit the Southeast today.
Insecurity still remains a challenge in Nigeria, but the Tinubu administration is tackling it head-on with a clear focus and determination.
We will invest more in technology. We will take over all our forests. We must neutralize kidnapping, banditry, and terrorism. It was never like this before in Nigeria. But we will reverse the trend.
The aviation sector is not left out in the gradual transformation of the country as a result of the Tinubu administration's bold initiatives. Since he was appointed Minister of Aviation and Aerospace Development, Festus Keyamo has been leading the charge to transform the sector in line with the president's plan.
Through policy trusts, we have restored international and global confidence in the aviation ecosystem, especially in the leasing, global leasing world. We have brought back that confidence in the Nigerian ecosystem. And we have been able to do this, by instilling integrity in our system. And this was a fallout of our compliance, our strict compliance with the Cape Town Convention that we had been signatories to, but were very poor in adhering to the terms of that convention. And so it was public knowledge last year that we went ahead and took practical steps to comply with the tenets of the convention. We signed the practice direction in Nigeria, and then also rolled out the IDERA by the NCA. And these two actions by Nigeria catapulted Nigeria from 49.5% to 75.5% on the global compliance scale. And that officially is the highest in Africa. So as I speak with you, international leasers and financiers are back in Nigeria right now. And it's only a matter of time, not a long time, before Nigerians will feel the full impact in terms of newer aircrafts, in terms of lower prices, ticket prices, because it will lead to more competition, both on domestic, regional, and international routes.
The new international terminal in Lagos, built by the previous administration, is now fully operational. Plans are now underway for a complete remodeling of the old terminal. Several routes are now being opened for ease of connections across the continent and beyond. And some airlines that left Nigeria in the past are now back. Key bilateral air service agreements have been finalized, integrating Nigeria more deeply into the global aviation ecosystem, facilitating easier and more efficient air travel between Nigeria and other countries under mutual benefits.
We have been able to open up a number of routes again for our domestic airlines, and also to attract some other international airlines to ensure that traveling experience for Nigerians is enhanced, and Nigerians have more options on some of these international routes. And so, of course, you saw the return of Emirates, the return of Emirates to the Nigerian domestic international routes. I mean, the return of Emirates to Nigeria, and Nigerians are beginning to enjoy that hub now in Dubai in their international travel. So, but there are other routes that we have been able to attract to Nigeria. You know, the Italian route had been closed for decades. Air Italia stopped flying to Nigeria many years ago. We've been able to attract another, international airline. And today we have opened up the Italian route again. We have also opened up the Algiers, Abuja, and Douala routes, Cameroonian routes. Before, it was so funny that you could not even take a 1 hour flight to Cameroon. I mean, it was so funny. And when I came to office, I said, how could this happen? Just 1 hour to Cameroon. You have to fly to Addis Ababa first and maybe spend one night before you now connect from Addis Ababa to Cameroon. Or you fly to Togo first, because Togo has a small hub there. And then from Togo, you now come and you start flying all over Nigeria again. You'll be flying on top of Nigeria to go to Cameroon. That was how, odd it was in terms of connectivity. But today we have been able to attract that and so on and so forth. So we have opened up so many other routes today in Nigeria.
Aviation infrastructure are also being improved upon. The long-delayed Abuja Airport second runway expansion is now getting off the ground. For the first time, the country now has the e-visa system for efficiency and ease of travelers as part of the immigration reforms of the government to strengthen the country's air borders. There are also 40 e-gates at all major international airports in the country for faster and more secure passenger processing. Passport application process is now fully automated, significantly reducing waiting time. Gone are the days of passport backlogs.
What we've been able to do is to introduce the contactless passport application system for, obviously, passport renewals. So, and that is live and direct. It was started in November. I think November 1st, we started last year in Canada. From Canada, we're able to move to Europe, and Europe excluding UK and I think Ireland. Then we were able to move to UK now, and Ireland now. We've moved to America, we've moved to Asia and other part of Africa as well. So it means that a Nigerian does not need to go to the embassy to renew his passport. Another major thing that we're also doing is to also bring a bit of, to be serious integrity to our passport. And what do we mean? What do I mean by that? I'll break it into two or three. Number one, when this government came on board, Nigerian passport was not registered on the ICAO PKI PKD. That's Public Key Infrastructure, Public Key Directory of ICAO. So it means that verification of Nigerian travel document was near impossible real time, in across all borders in the world, airports and whatever. So that's why when a Nigerian travels with a Nigerian passport, there's he has a more difficult chance of being attended to than a foreigner. But this particular, under this administration for the first time, Nigerian travel document, the passport has been imported into the PKI, PKD, ICAO directory. So Nigeria is now compliant. And I'll tell you that before this government came on board, we never had any, in fact, profiling at our border posts were basically subjective and never objective. Profiling wasn't based on the principle of objectivity. And you know that any decision that you make on the premise of subjectivity is likely going to be laden with errors. But this government came and we introduced what we call the API solution, which is the Advanced Passenger Information System in terms of our air borders. So such a way now that before any passenger comes into Nigeria, we have the opportunity of pre-profiling such passengers and we can easily identify persons of interest.
Successes have also been recorded in the agriculture sector. The government is driving a massive mechanization process to boost food production and security. Thousands of tractors and other agricultural inputs have been deployed to help farmers not only farm on a large scale, but also rapidly improve their yields.
Mr. President has transformed agriculture from potential to performance. And it's, like I said, driven by mechanization to market access, from inputs to export driven. Saudi Arabian minister came last year and he came and sought for 1 million tons of alfalfa and 1 million tons of soya and 200,000 tons of red meat. Today, we have already started that engagement, and that is a drive that was spearheaded by Mr. President when we all accompanied him to Saudi Arabia in November of 2023.
In its determination to combat food inflation, hundreds of thousands of hectares of land are being cultivated for wheat production across several states in the country. Over 100,000 farmers have so far been supported, and more agro-rangers are being deployed to provide security for farmers.
3 other programs that we have seen that has made an impact is the mechanization program of Mr. President. That is a wonderful legacy. We have, like I said, the GIP is also mechanization partly, and then the Greener Hope, which seeks to provide almost about 10,000 different implements, from tractors to harrows and other agricultural equipment over a period of 10 years. And that will also seek to set up about 1,000 service centers across the nation, and also to develop 150,000 hectares of land across the federation, with 25,000 from each geopolitical zone. So for 6 and 25,000 makes 150,000. So those two, the Belarus tractors and John Deere, are procurement. The GIP and the Greener Hope are collaborative efforts. So we have already started receiving. Right now in Abuja, we have almost 700 tractors on ground out of the 2,000 from the Belarus. And very soon, Mr. President is going to launch those tractors.
The First Lady, Remi Tinubu, has taken a very keen interest in the agriculture sector and has been very supportive of efforts to make Nigeria food secure. In her quest to attract young people to farming, she launched the Young Farmers Club Nigeria in collaboration with the Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security as part of her pet project, Renewed Hope Initiative. The Young Farmers Club Nigeria aims to revive Nigeria's indigenous occupation of farming, create employment opportunities, diversify the economy, and ensure food security.
Agriculture has always been the backbone of our nation. From time past, we have tilled the land with our hands and hearts, to the present, where agriculture continues to be a crucial part of our daily lives and economy. It is clear that farming is not just an occupation. It is a way of life which can create employment opportunities for a teeming young population, help diversify the economy, and put food on our tables. As I reminisce, I remember the groundnut pyramids and cotton plantations in the north, palm oil cultivation in the east, cocoa and rubber plantations in the west and the southern part of Nigeria. I believe all of these can be resuscitated and scaled up with modern techniques and mechanization.
So far, many young people across the country have signed up to the initiative and beginning to take to farming. Gradually, misconceptions about farming among young people are changing. There have been so many positives for the country in the last 2 years. Indeed, some of the reforms have come with initial challenges, but they are now being overcome, and light is beginning to appear at the end of the tunnel.
A lot has happened in the last few years that's commendable. I'll call it, these 2 years have been the years of reform. Going forward now, the idea is to ensure that these reforms, the benefit of these reforms, really reach the people.
Let's do the hard work. And it will take time before the results become widely apparent, but we are seeing changes that are showing us that we are on the right track.
We have a unique opportunity under President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's administration to compete with our contemporaries, our peers all over the world. You need home government support to compete, and we have it.
Nigeria is certainly on the rise. With the Renewed Hope agenda, the Tinubu administration is fixing Africa's most populous country and getting it to fire on all cylinders.